Part 1. The Verdict of Stars. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, interrupting breakfast across 3 billion homes on Earth. Every screen, every device, every communication system suddenly displayed the same image: 12 alien faces staring down at humanity with cold, ancient eyes. Ambassador Hannah Lee was the first human to understand what was happening. She stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York, watching the broadcast with growing horror. The aliens spoke in a language that somehow translated itself directly into every human mind. Their words were clear, terrible, and final. "Humanity has been judged," the largest alien said. Its skin was pale blue, covered in patterns that shifted like oil on water. "You have expanded too quickly. You have weaponized technology meant for peace. You have shown aggression toward the stars themselves. The Galactic Tribunal has voted. Your species will be removed from existence." The room erupted in chaos. Diplomats shouted questions that would never be answered. The alien continued speaking as if no one had interrupted. "The purifiers have been dispatched. They will arrive in your solar system within 30 days. Prepare yourselves. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. 17 civilizations before you have received this judgment. All 17 are now gone. You will be the 18th. The broadcast ended as suddenly as it began. Hannah stood frozen, her mind racing through every diplomatic protocol she knew. None of them covered this. None of them could help. Across the solar system, Captain Taeyang Park was conducting routine patrol around Jupiter's moons when the message played across his ship's communication system. He commanded the EDS Indomitable, humanity's largest warship built to protect mining operations in the outer system. The ship had impressive weapons for dealing with pirates and asteroids. Against an alien force that had destroyed 17 entire civilizations, Taeyang knew his ship was little more than a toy. He immediately opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Captain Park. I need confirmation." Was that broadcast real? The voice that answered belonged to Admiral Junho Kim, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. The Admiral sounded tired, older than his 60 years. "It's real, Captain. Every analysis confirms it. We're tracking multiple objects entering the solar system from deep space. Large objects, moving fast. They'll reach Mars orbit in 29 days. What are your orders, sir?" There was a long pause. "Bring your ship home, Taeyang. We're calling everyone back. Every ship, every station, every colony. If we're going to die, we die together defending Earth. But not everyone could come home." On Mars Colony, Colonel Daehyun Shin received different orders. His colony housed 2 million people, most of them families of miners and engineers. The colony couldn't be evacuated in 30 days. There weren't enough ships. There wasn't enough time. Daehyun gathered his small military force, barely 3,000 soldiers trained for riot control and emergency response. They had mining equipment, construction tools, and exactly 12 military-grade weapons designed to disable hostile drones. He looked at his people and saw fear in their eyes. They were colonists, not warriors. They had come to Mars to build a future, not to fight for survival. "Listen to me," Daehyun said, his voice steady despite the terror in his chest. "We have mining lasers that can cut through solid rock. We have construction mechs strong enough to lift a building. We have tunnels that go 50 miles deep. The aliens think we're helpless. Let's prove them wrong." On Earth, Dr. Mireille Choi worked in a laboratory beneath Geneva, analyzing every second of the alien broadcast. She was humanity's leading expert in theoretical xenobiology, though until yesterday, that had been a field with no practical application. Now her expertise might be the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. She played the broadcast for the 100th time, studying the aliens' faces, their body language, the way their mouths moved when they spoke. The translation had been too perfect, too smooth. That suggested technology beyond anything humans had achieved. But it also suggested something else: a common communication protocol. "A weakness. They're using some kind of universal translator," she muttered to her assistant, "which means there's a base language, a root code. If we can crack that code, we might be able to understand their technology, maybe even use it." Her assistant looked skeptical. "Doctor, we have 30 days. Then we better work fast." Around the world, humanity prepared for war. Factories that had built cars began building missiles. Space elevators ran 24 hours a day, launching defensive satellites. Scientists who had spent their careers studying peaceful technologies now weaponized everything they could. The internet, usually filled with arguments and entertainment, became a single unified voice. We will not go quietly into extinction. Ambassador Hana Lee volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. She took a small diplomatic shuttle and flew out beyond Mars, broadcasting messages of peace on every frequency. For 3 days she received no response. On the 4th day, something responded. The ship that appeared was massive, built from materials that seemed to absorb light. It grabbed her shuttle with a tractor beam and pulled her inside. Hana found herself in a vast chamber facing Enforcer Prime Vexthor, leader of the Purifiers. Vexthor was 7 feet tall, covered in what looked like living armor. Its eyes glowed with an inner light, and when it spoke, Hana felt the words in her bones. "Why do you come here, human? The judgment is final." Hana stood as tall as she could. "I come to ask why. What have we done that deserves extinction?" "You exist in a dangerous way," Vexthor said. "Your species multiplies too quickly. You consume resources without thought. You fight among yourselves constantly. Yet you develop weapons of terrible power. Every species like yours has destroyed themselves or others. We prevent that outcome. We are the galaxy's mercy, ending threats before they can spread." "Mercy?" Hana's voice shook with anger. "You call genocide mercy? We call it necessity. Your species will fight us, of course. They all do. You will lose, as they all did. Some of you will beg for mercy. Some will rage against the inevitable. It changes nothing. In 30 days, humanity will be a memory." Vexthor gestured, and guards grabbed Hana. "You will be kept alive to witness the extinction of your species. It is important that someone remembers. When we are done, we will release you alone into the void, the last human, so you can carry the weight of your species' failure." As they dragged her away, Hana screamed, "You're making a mistake. You don't know what humans are capable of." Vexthor watched her go with something like pity. It had heard those words before from 17 other species. None of them had been right. Back on Earth, Admiral Junho Kim stood in the command center watching countdown clocks. 26 days until the aliens arrived. 26 days to prepare for a war humanity couldn't win. Captain Taeyang Park's ship entered Earth orbit, joining 200 other vessels, the entire human fleet. Together they would make their stand. On Mars, Colonel Daehyun Shin and his colonists dug deeper, prepared their improvised weapons, and waited. In Geneva, Dr. Mirai Choi stared at lines of alien code, searching for the key that might save them all. Across 3 planets and 100 stations, humanity held its breath. The galaxy had sent its executioners. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when you tried to kill humans who refused to die. Part 2. First Blood, the Purifier fleet arrived exactly on schedule, appearing at the edge of the solar system like dark wounds in space. Their ships moved with terrible purpose toward Mars, ignoring the desperate broadcasts from Earth requesting dialogue. Colonel Daehyun Shin watched from his command bunker 2 miles beneath the Martian surface. His sensors showed 37 alien warships approaching the red planet. Behind him, engineer Jiwoo Han frantically made final adjustments to their defensive systems. "How long until they reach orbit?" Daehyun asked. 4 hours, Jiwoo replied, her hands shaking as she worked. She was a mining engineer, not a soldier. None of them were soldiers. But they were about to become warriors whether they liked it or not. Daehyun addressed his people over the colony-wide communication system. "This is Colonel Shin. The enemy is coming. We've evacuated everyone we can into the deep tunnels. Our families are safe for now. What happens next depends on us. We're going to show these aliens that humans don't die easy." On the surface, Private Soyeon Kwan crouched inside a modified mining mech, waiting. She was 23 years old, had been on Mars for only 6 months, and had never fired a weapon at a living being. Around her, 3 dozen other colonists sat in similar mechs. Machines designed to dig through rock, now fitted with cutting lasers and improvised armor. The Purifier ships entered Mars orbit and began their bombardment. Energy beams lanced down from space, turning the surface structures into molten slag. The aliens were thorough, destroying every building, every dome, every visible sign of human presence. They worked methodically as if they had done this 1,000 times before, which of course they had. What the Purifiers didn't know was that the surface structures were empty. Every human on Mars was underground, hidden in tunnels that the alien sensors couldn't penetrate through the planet's iron-rich crust. After 2 hours of bombardment, the Purifiers began landing ground forces. Transport ships descended through the smoke and dust, deploying warriors in powered armor. They expected to find bodies, maybe a few survivors hiding in ruins. What they found instead was nothing. Empty bases, abandoned streets, no humans at all. That's when the ground beneath them exploded. Jiwoo Han had spent 3 weeks converting mining charges into weapons. Now those charges detonated in carefully planned sequences, collapsing parts of the surface and sending purifier soldiers tumbling into newly formed craters. Before they could recover, the mining mechs burst from hidden garage tunnels. Soyeon found herself face to face with an alien warrior. It was faster than her, better armored and obviously more experienced. But her mining mech was built to crush rocks, and the alien was softer than rocks. She swung her mech's hydraulic arm and the purifier went flying. "They bleed," someone shouted over the communication channel. The bastards actually bleed. The battle was chaos. Colonists in mining mechs fought hand-to-hand with alien warriors. Modified cargo haulers rammed landing craft. Construction equipment became improvised battering rams. The purifiers had expected an easy cleanup operation. Instead, they found themselves in a desperate close-quarters battle. Daehyun watched the fighting from his command center, directing his forces like pieces on a chessboard. When purifiers grouped together, he collapsed tunnels beneath them. When they advanced, he triggered magnetic pulse mines that Jiwoo had built from salvaged equipment. The aliens were better equipped and better trained, but they were fighting on human ground now, in conditions humans understood. Above Mars, Captain Taeyang Park led the Earth Defense Fleet in a desperate attack. His orders were to cause as much damage as possible before dying. The human fleet had 200 ships. The purifiers had 37. Under normal circumstances, numbers would win. But these weren't normal circumstances. The first exchange of fire showed the terrible truth. Human missiles and lasers barely scratched the alien hulls. Meanwhile, purifier weapons tore through human ships like paper. "In the first 5 minutes, Taeyang lost 30 ships. Pull back," someone screamed over the command channel. "We can't fight them." "No," Taeyang said quietly. "We can't fight them fair, so we fight dirty." He ordered his ships to scatter and engage from multiple angles. Instead of trading shots at range, human ships flew close, using their smaller size and maneuverability. They targeted the same spots repeatedly, concentrating fire where shields seemed weakest. They rammed damaged enemy ships with unmanned vessels. They did everything desperate people do when they have no other choice. And slowly, incredibly, it started to work. The purifiers had fought countless battles against countless species, but most of those species had given up after the first devastating losses. Most had tried to flee or hide or negotiate. Humans did none of those things. Humans kept coming, kept fighting, kept dying, and kept killing. Taeyang personally commanded the Indomitable in an attack run on a purifier capital ship. His weapons couldn't penetrate its main shields, so he didn't try. Instead, he targeted its engines at point-blank range, sacrificing his ship's shields to get close enough to matter. The concentrated fire damaged the alien ship's propulsion. It couldn't maneuver properly anymore. 3 more human ships followed Taeyang's example, dying in suicide runs that crippled the enemy vessel. A 4th ship, loaded with nuclear missiles, crashed directly into the damaged purifier's bridge. The explosion lit up Mars' orbit like a second sun. For the first time in the battle, for the first time in perhaps 1,000 years, a purifier capital ship died. On the surface, Soyeon's squad captured a wounded alien warrior. They dragged it into their tunnels, and Dr. Miri Choi's team, transmitted live from Earth, studied it through video feed. They analyzed its armor, its weapons, its biological structure. Every piece of information was transmitted back to Earth immediately. Their armor has a standard power coupling. Mirai reported after an hour of study. "I think I can build something that disrupts it." "How long?" Admiral Juno Kim asked from Earth. "Give me 6 hours." The battle for Mars continued for 2 full days. The purifiers kept landing troops and humans kept killing them in the tunnels. Above the planet, Taeyang's fleet was down to 80 ships, but they had destroyed 3 purifier capital ships and damaged a dozen others. On the 3rd day, Enforcer Prime Vexthor personally entered Mars orbit aboard his flagship. He had expected this to be a simple extermination. Instead, he had lost ships, lost warriors, and lost time. The humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, easy to kill. They were none of those things. "Analysis," Vexthor demanded. His second-in-command brought up tactical displays. The humans fight with no regard for their own survival. They use weapons we've never encountered. Crude explosives, industrial equipment, ramming tactics. They refuse to surrender even when defeat is certain. Their ships are inferior but numerous. Their ground forces are poorly armed but highly motivated. Recommendation? Request reinforcements. These humans are unlike any species we've encountered. Vexthor stared at the tactical display showing his losses. In 1,000 years of service, he had never lost a single ship. In 3 days, humans had destroyed 3 and damaged many more. Pride warred with pragmatism in his ancient mind. Send the request, he finally said, and increase orbital bombardment. If we cannot root them out, we'll bury them alive. On Mars, Daehyun received Jiwoo's latest weapon, electromagnetic pulse grenades that could disable purifier armor. He distributed them to his teams and prepared for the next assault. In orbit, Taeyang reorganized his surviving ships. They were battered, running low on ammunition, but they were still fighting. Still breathing, still human. On Earth, Mirai cracked another piece of alien code. She was beginning to understand their communication systems, their computer protocols, their technology. Every battle gave her more data. Every captured piece of equipment told her more secrets. The galaxy had sent its executioners to kill humanity quietly and efficiently. Instead, humans had given them a war. The question now was whether humanity could survive long enough to turn that war into victory. Soyeon Kwan sat in her battered mech, covered in alien blood and Martian dust, and allowed herself to smile. They were still alive. Against all odds, against an enemy that had destroyed 17 civilizations, humans were still fighting. And somewhere deep in her heart, she began to believe they might actually win. Part 3, The Hunted Becomes the Hunter Doctor. Mirai Choi hadn't slept in 4 days. Her eyes burned as she stared at screens filled with alien code. But she couldn't stop now, not when she was so close to understanding. The captured purifier equipment had given her everything she needed. Their technology was advanced, yes, but it followed logical patterns. More importantly, it was standardized. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of armor used the same basic systems. The aliens had been using the same technology for thousands of years, never imagining anyone would be able to copy it, let alone improve it. "I've got it," she whispered into her communication device. "Admiral, I can read their transmissions. I know what they're saying to each other." Admiral Junho Kim's tired face appeared on her screen. "Are you certain?" "Completely. Their command ship is requesting reinforcements from 4 different sectors. They're admitting losses, Admiral. They're scared of us." Junho allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Let's give them something to be scared about. Send everything you've learned to Captain Park and Commander Hyunwoo Choi." Commander Hyunwoo Choi commanded a new formation called the Ghost Fleet, 25 small, fast ships built from modified commercial vessels. They weren't powerful enough to fight purifier warships directly, but they didn't need to be. With Mirai's intelligence, they knew exactly where the purifier supply lines were located. Hyunwoo gathered his captains in a virtual meeting. "The aliens are calling for help. That means supply ships, reinforcement carriers, fuel tankers. These ships will be lightly guarded because they don't expect us to know where they are. We're going to prove them wrong." The first Ghost Fleet attack happened near Jupiter's orbit. 3 purifier supply ships were traveling toward Mars, escorted by a single warship. Hyunwoo's forces appeared from behind Jupiter's moons, having hidden there for 2 days waiting for the right moment. The purifiers detected the human ships immediately, but they weren't worried. 25 small vessels against a military escort?
Easy victory.
They prepared to destroy the humans quickly and continue their mission. What they didn't expect was the humans' new weapons. Scientist Yoonji Nam had been studying the captured purifier power cores for weeks. She discovered that the alien technology used antimatter containment fields, similar to theoretical designs human scientists had proposed decades ago. With the alien hardware as a template, she could build weapons that used the same principles. The results were devastating. Hyunwoo's ships fired modified torpedoes that penetrated purifier shields using the aliens' own frequency signatures. The warship's defenses, calibrated to stop primitive human weapons, were useless against technology built from purifier science. The escort ship exploded. The supply vessels tried to flee, but they were slow, built for cargo rather than combat. Hyunwoo's forces destroyed them systematically, then disappeared back into Jupiter's shadow before reinforcements could arrive. The Ghost Fleet struck again 3 days later, ambushing another convoy near Saturn. then again at Neptune. Each time they used Mirai's intelligence to know exactly where the enemy would be, and Yunji's weapons to kill them efficiently. The Purifiers were now facing something they had never encountered, an enemy that was learning faster than they could adapt. On Mars, the battle had evolved into a deadly game of cat and mouse. The Purifiers controlled the surface completely, but the tunnels belonged to humans. Colonel Daehyun Shin's forces had perfected hit-and-run tactics, emerging from hidden entrances to strike at enemy positions before vanishing underground again. Engineer Ji Woo-han had become a legend among the colonists. She could turn anything into a weapon, communications equipment into jammers, medical scanners into motion detectors, food synthesizers into explosive compound factories. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had unlimited creativity. Private Soyeon Kwan led her squad on a daring raid to capture more alien equipment. They emerged from a tunnel directly beneath a Purifier ammunition depot, killed the guards before alarms could sound, and stole 3 crates of advanced weapons. Soyeon herself carried an alien plasma rifle that she had learned to use by watching her enemies. "How does it feel?" another soldier asked her. "Heavy," Soyeon replied, "but it kills them just fine." Agent Min-ho Yoon was humanity's secret weapon. He was an intelligence operative who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission imaginable, infiltrating a Purifier command ship. The plan was insane. Minho would hide inside a captured alien shuttle, allow it to be recovered by the Purifiers, and then sneak through their ship gathering intelligence. If caught, he would die. Even if successful, he might not escape alive. "I understand the risks," Minho told Admiral Junho before launching. "But if we can learn where they come from, where their homeworlds are, we can end this war." The infiltration took 3 weeks. Minho hid in maintenance shafts, survived on stolen rations, and documented everything he saw. The Purifiers never suspected a human could be aboard their ship. Why would they? Humans were primitive creatures who should have been dead already. What Minho discovered changed everything. The Purifiers weren't a natural species. They were bioengineered warriors created by the Galactic Tribunal, specifically to eliminate threats. They had no homeworld, no families, no purpose beyond killing designated targets. But the tribunal that created them did have homeworlds. 12 different species, 12 different planets, all gathered in a cluster near the galactic core. Minho found the navigation database and downloaded everything. Star charts, fleet positions, population centers, defensive capabilities. Then he stole an escape pod and launched himself into space, transmitting his data on every frequency he could access before passing out from G-force acceleration. Captain Taeyang Park's forces picked up the transmission. Within hours, every human ship had the information. Within days, Earth's military leadership was studying detailed maps of the enemy's home territory. Admiral Junho called an emergency meeting of Earth's government leaders and military commanders. "We know where they live now. We have their technology. We understand their communications. The question is, what do we do with this information?" "We take the war to them," Taeyang said immediately. "We've been fighting defensively, reacting to their moves. It's time to make them react to us." There were objections, of course. Earth's fleet was still smaller than the Purifier forces. Casualties had been enormous. Could humanity really launch an offensive strike against an enemy that had killed 17 civilizations? But Mirai provided new intelligence that changed the debate. The Purifiers are requesting emergency reinforcements from all 12 tribunal species. They're pulling ships from defensive positions, leaving their homeworlds vulnerable. They never expected to need help with us. If we strike now, while they're focused on defending against us here, we might actually reach the tribunal before they can redeploy their forces. It's our only chance, Daehyun added from Mars. If we wait, they'll adapt. They'll learn from their mistakes. They'll bring enough ships to overwhelm us through sheer numbers. We need to hit them while they're still underestimating us. The vote was close, but eventually the decision was made. Operation Retribution would launch in 30 days. Humanity would take the war to the Galactic Tribunal itself. Across the solar system, ships were repaired and modified. New weapons were installed. Captured alien technology was reverse-engineered and mass-produced. Volunteers lined up to join the fleet, knowing most would never return. Enforcer Prime Vexthor watched human activity from his flagship and felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. The humans should have been extinct by now. Instead, they were destroying his supply lines, killing his warriors, and somehow impossibly winning. He sent another message to the tribunal. The humans are more dangerous than we believed. I request permission to use extreme measures, planetary bombardment, biological weapons, whatever is necessary to end this quickly. The tribunal's response was cold and bureaucratic. Request denied. The purifiers exist to eliminate threats with precision, not to devastate systems unnecessarily. Complete your mission with current resources. Vexthor closed the communication channel and stared at the tactical display. The humans had just destroyed another supply convoy. His forces were running low on ammunition. Reinforcements were still weeks away. For the first time in his 1,000-year existence, Vexthor wondered if he might actually lose. On Earth, Taeyang stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now repaired and upgraded with captured alien technology. Around him, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled prepared for launch. 200 ships, each crewed by people who knew they were probably flying to their deaths. All ships report ready, his first officer announced. Taeyang took a deep breath. Then let's go introduce ourselves to the galaxy. It's time they learned what happens when you threaten humanity. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the solar system behind. They were no longer the hunted. Now humanity was the hunter. Part 4. The Long Night. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at 4 locations simultaneously, a coordinated strike that had taken weeks of planning and every resource humanity could muster. Captain Taeyang Park led the assault on the Vexthor homeworld. Admiral Yuna Park, his sister, commanded forces attacking another tribunal species. General Seojun Kang prepared ground troops for invasion. Across 100 light-years, humanity struck as one. The tribunal species had grown comfortable over thousands of years. They lived on peaceful worlds, protected by the purifiers they had created. War was something that happened elsewhere. To primitive species who threatened galactic order, they had never imagined war coming to them. Taeyang's forces hit the Vexthor homeworld first. The planet was beautiful, covered in crystalline cities that sparkled under a blue sun. Billions of Vexthor civilians lived there, the genetic source material for the purifier warriors, but themselves peaceful and scholarly. They had built the purifiers to protect them from threats. Now a threat had arrived at their doorstep. The planetary defense fleet was massive but outdated. These ships had never fired weapons in anger, had never faced an enemy willing to die to achieve victory. Against human forces armed with reverse-engineered alien technology and endless determination, they didn't stand a chance. All ships, focus fire on the orbital defense platforms, Taeyang ordered. Once those are down, we control the high ground. The battle was brutal and efficient. Human ships swarmed the defenders using tactics learned from months of desperate fighting. They targeted weak points that Mirai had identified. They used weapons that Yunji had designed. They fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. Within 6 hours, Taeyang controlled orbit. Within 12 hours, General Seojun Kang's troops were landing on the surface. Seojun was known throughout the Earth military as a ruthless pragmatist. He understood that war was ugly, that victory required doing terrible things, but he also understood that unnecessary cruelty served no purpose. His orders to his troops were clear. Disable military targets, capture infrastructure intact, and minimize civilian casualties. We're not here to commit genocide, he told his soldiers as they deployed. We're here to win a war. The tribunal sent the purifiers to exterminate us. We're going to prove we're better than that. The Vexthor civilians fled before the human advance, terrified of the creatures who had somehow defeated their purifiers. They had seen broadcasts of the fighting at Mars, had watched humans refuse to die, had witnessed their inferior technology adapted and improved. Now those same humans were walking their streets, but the expected massacre never came. Human soldiers secured government buildings, communication centers, and military installations. They broadcast messages in the Vexthor language, demanding surrender and promising fair treatment. They established field hospitals that treated both human and Vexthor wounded. They behaved, in short, like a professional military force rather than vengeful monsters. This confused the Vexthor even more than violence would have. On another tribunal world, Admiral Yuna Park faced a different challenge. This species, called the Kelthani, had powerful shield technology protecting their planet. Her ships couldn't penetrate the shields, and the defenders showed no intention of surrendering. Options. she asked her tactical officer. We could bombard them from orbit until their shields fail. Estimated time 3 weeks. Estimated civilian casualties millions. Yuna shook her head. Not acceptable. If we win this war by becoming them, we haven't really won. Find me another way. Dr. Mireille Choi, consulting remotely from Earth, provided the solution. The Kelthani shields operate on a rotating frequency. If you can time your attack to hit during the frequency shift, you'll have a 2-second window to get through. 2 seconds. Yuna would need to drop troops, equipment, and supplies through a planetary shield in 2 seconds. It was impossible. It was insane. Prepare the dropships, she ordered. We're going in. The operation required split-second timing and incredible luck. Yuna's fleet positioned itself above the Kelthani capital city and waited for Mireille's signal. When the shields shifted frequency, every dropship launched simultaneously. Most made it through, some didn't, crashing into the shields and killing everyone aboard. But enough survived to establish a landing zone in the heart of the enemy capital. The ground battle for the Kelthani homeworld lasted 5 days. The defenders fought fiercely, protecting their homes with desperate courage. But they were fighting soldiers who had learned warfare in the tunnels of Mars, who had faced extinction and refused to accept it, who knew that losing meant the deaths of everyone they loved. Human troops advanced block by block, building by building. They used captured purifier weapons alongside their own designs. They adapted to enemy tactics on the fly. They suffered casualties but never broke, never retreated, never stopped pushing forward. On the 5th day, the Kelthani government surrendered. Meanwhile, on the Vexthor homeworld, something unexpected happened. Enforcer Prime Vexthor himself arrived with a fleet of purifier ships, desperate to save his creator's homeworld. He had abandoned the assault on Earth, pulled every available ship, and raced home at maximum speed. He arrived to find human forces occupying his planet's capital city. "This is Enforcer Prime Vexthor," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I challenge the human commander to single combat. If I win, you withdraw from this world. If you win, my forces will stand down." General Seojin considered the offer. It was probably a trap. Even if it wasn't, Vexthor was a bioengineered warrior with 1,000 years of combat experience. No human could defeat him one-on-one. "I accept," said a voice over the communication channel. Colonel Daehyun Shin stepped forward. He had arrived with the invasion force, leaving Mars for the first time in months. His face was scarred from tunnel fighting, his armor battered from 100 battles. "I've been fighting your soldiers for half a year," Daehyun said. "Let's see if the original is any better than the copies." They met in a square in the center of the occupied city. Thousands watched. Humans, Vexthor civilians, soldiers from both sides. Vexthor towered over Daehyun, his armor gleaming, his weapons integrated into his body. Daehyun wore standard combat gear and carried a rifle he'd taken from a dead purifier. The fight lasted 17 minutes. Vexthor was faster, stronger, more experienced. His attacks should have killed Daehyun in seconds. But Daehyun had learned to fight in the Martian tunnels where hesitation meant death, and every mistake was fatal. He had trained with Soyeon and her squad, learning from soldiers who had killed purifiers in close combat. He understood how they moved, how they thought, how they killed. More importantly, Daehyun was fighting for something. Vexthor was a created being, engineered for combat but without true purpose. Daehyun was fighting for his daughter, safe in the deep tunnels of Mars. For his friends who had died holding the line, for a future where humans could live without fear of extermination. When Vexthor lunged for a killing strike, Daehyun was already moving. He had seen that same attack pattern from other purifiers. He knew the counter. His rifle fired point-blank into Vexthor's armor joint, a weak point Jiwoo had identified months ago. Vexthor fell. His armor failed. He looked up at Daehyun with something like wonder in his ancient eyes. "How?" he whispered. "We were created to be perfect warriors." "That's your problem," Daehyun said, breathing hard. "You were created. We were born. We learn, we adapt, we survive." Vexthor died with that lesson on his lips. True to their word, the Purifier fleet withdrew. Without their leader, without clear orders, they didn't know what to do. They had been created to follow Vexthor's commands. With him gone, they were lost. Across 4 worlds, the tribunal species surrendered. Their defenders were beaten, their purifiers defeated, their certainty shattered. The species that had judged 17 civilizations and found them wanting were themselves being judged. Captain Taiyang Park stood in the Vexthor Senate chamber, surrounded by the leaders of the species that had tried to exterminate humanity. They looked at him with fear, waiting for the massacre to begin. Instead, Taiyang said, "The Galactic Tribunal is dissolved. Your days of judging other species are over. You will surrender all weapons, all military vessels, all purifier facilities. You will submit to human oversight until we're satisfied you're no longer a threat. In return, we will not harm your civilians. We will not destroy your worlds. We will show you the mercy you denied us and 17 others." One of the tribunal members, an elderly Vexthor, spoke up. "Why, we tried to kill you all. We sent the purifiers to erase your entire species. Why show us mercy?" Taiyang thought of Ambassador Hana Li, still held captive somewhere in a purifier prison ship. He thought of the soldiers who had died defending Mars. He thought of the terrible cost humanity had paid. "Because," he said finally, "if we kill you like you tried to kill us, then we're no better than you. Humanity isn't going to win this war by becoming monsters. We're going to win by proving we're better than the galaxy thought we were." The tribunal members had no response to that. The war wasn't over, not yet, but the balance had shifted. The hunted had become hunters. The condemned had become judges, and the galaxy would never be the same. Part 5. The New Order. 3 months after the fall of the Galactic Tribunal, Captain Taiyang Park stood in what had once been the Chamber of Galactic Judgment. The same room where 12 species had condemned humanity to death now served as headquarters for Earth's occupation government. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "Report," Taiyang said to his assembled staff. He had been promoted to Galactic Arbiter, a title he never wanted but accepted out of duty. General Xiujun Kang spoke first. "All tribunal worlds are secured. We've confiscated 97% of their military hardware. The remaining purifier forces have been disbanded and entered re-education programs. No major resistance movements have emerged." "Because they're too shocked to resist," Admiral Yuna Park added. "These species haven't fought a war in thousands of years. They built the purifiers to do their fighting for them. Now that the purifiers are gone, they don't know how to oppose us even if they wanted to." Dr. Mireille Choi had arrived from Earth 2 weeks ago to establish the Interspecies Research Institute. "I've been analyzing tribunal historical records," she said. "They didn't start out as tyrants. Thousands of years ago, they were peaceful species who banded together for mutual protection. But over time, fear turned to paranoia. They began seeing threats everywhere. They created the purifiers to deal with those threats, and the purifiers became their solution to everything. 17 civilizations died because the tribunal forgot how to resolve conflicts without violence. And now we're in the same position," Taiyang said quietly. "We have the power. We control their worlds. We could do anything we want to them. The question is, what should we do?" It was the question that had consumed Earth's leadership for months. Some wanted revenge, wanted to make the tribunal species suffer as humanity had suffered. Others wanted to simply leave, pull back to the solar system and let the aliens handle their own problems. Still others proposed various middle grounds: protection, oversight, partnership. Admiral Junho Kim appeared on the communication screen from Earth. The old admiral had refused to leave the solar system, claiming someone needed to keep watching the home front. "The vote is complete," he announced. "The Earth Assembly has decided. We proceed with the Terran Accord." The Terran Accord was humanity's third path. Not genocide, not abandonment, but transformation. The tribunal species would be disarmed but protected. They would lose their independence but gain security. And most importantly, they would learn from humanity how to coexist with species different from themselves. "Are we sure about this?" Yuna asked. "We're talking about occupying 12 different worlds indefinitely, protecting species that tried to exterminate us, teaching them to be better, while preventing them from ever threatening us again. It's going to take decades, maybe centuries." "I know," Taiyang said. "But what's the alternative? If we leave them alone, they'll eventually rebuild and try again. If we destroy them, we become exactly what they feared. This is the only way forward." The implementation of the Terran Accord began immediately. Human forces established permanent bases on all tribunal worlds. The Guardian Fleet was formed, combining human ships with captured alien technology to patrol and protect the former tribunal space. Each tribunal species was assigned human advisors who would help them transition to the new order. But the most controversial part of the accord was the war crimes trials. Ambassador Hana Li, finally freed from her purifier prison, volunteered to lead the prosecution. She had spent months in captivity, forced to watch broadcasts of the attacks on Earth and Mars, believing her species was being exterminated. When human forces rescued her, she had wept with relief and joy. Now she channeled those emotions into justice. "We're not executing them," she told Taeyang during trial preparations. "We're not engaging in collective punishment. We're identifying the individuals who made the decision to exterminate 17 civilizations and holding them accountable in a court of law, just like we would want if the situation was reversed." The trials took place in the same chamber where the tribunal had passed their judgments. The 12 leaders who had ordered humanity's extinction stood in the defendants' section, surrounded by evidence of their crimes, recordings of their votes, orders for extermination, the coordinates of 17 dead worlds. Hana presented the case methodically, without passion or theatrics. She didn't need to embellish. The facts spoke for themselves. These 12 individuals had ordered the deaths of trillions of beings across 17 civilizations. They had done so believing they were protecting the galaxy. But good intentions didn't excuse genocide. The defense argued that they had acted according to their laws, their culture, their understanding of galactic safety. They claimed they had no choice, that aggressive species always destroyed themselves or others. That preemptive elimination was the only logical solution. "Then explain humans," Hana said during her closing argument. "You judged us as irredeemably violent, too dangerous to exist. You sent your purifiers to kill every man, woman, and child on Earth and Mars. Yet when we defeated you, when we had the power to do the same to you, we didn't. We chose mercy. We chose justice. We chose to prove you wrong. Your logic was flawed. Your judgments were murder. And now you will face the consequences." The tribunal of human judges deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The sentence, life imprisonment, to be served in isolation with mandatory daily viewing of historical records from the civilizations they had destroyed. They would spend the rest of their lives confronting what they had done. Some humans thought the sentence too lenient. Others thought it too harsh. Most understood it was necessary. If humanity was going to rule fairly, they needed to demonstrate that power came with responsibility, that even defeated enemies deserved due process. On Mars, engineer Jiwoo Han oversaw the construction of a memorial. It was built into the rock where the first battle had taken place, listing the names of every human who had died in the war. Next to the human names were lists of the 17 extinct civilizations, species whose names humanity had learned from tribunal records. At the center was a simple inscription: "We remember. We survived. We will do better." Private Soyeon Kwan attended the memorial's dedication ceremony. She was a sergeant now, decorated for valor, but she still felt like the scared colonist who had fought in a mining mech, not knowing if she would survive the day. She stood before the memorial with tears in her eyes, remembering friends who hadn't made it. "Do you think they'd be proud of us?" another veteran asked her. Soyeon considered the question. "I think they'd be relieved we didn't become what we were fighting against." Dr. Mireille Choi threw herself into her work at the Interspecies Research Institute. She brought together scientists from Earth and all 12 tribunal species, encouraging them to share knowledge and learn from each other. The tribunal species had technology humanity lacked. Humanity had perspectives and creativity the tribunal had forgotten. Together they could achieve things neither could alone. "This is what the galaxy should have been all along," Mireille told her staff. "Not one species dominating others, not powerful civilizations destroying those they fear, but cooperation, learning, growing together." 100 years after the war, a young human named Jiho visited Mars as part of his galactic history studies. He walked through the memorial tunnels, reading names and stories, trying to understand what his ancestors had endured. His teacher, an elderly Vexthor who had lived through the war as a child, guided the tour. "My people tried to kill yours," the Vexthor said quietly. "We were so certain we were right. We couldn't imagine that a species we judged as primitive and violent could teach us about mercy and justice." Jiho looked at the names carved into Martian rock. "Do you think we did the right thing? Letting your people survive?" The Vexthor considered carefully. "I think your people did something remarkable. You had every right to destroy us. Instead, you showed us a better way." Today, young Vexthor study human history as an example of strength tempered by wisdom. We teach our children that power without restraint is tyranny. You didn't just defeat us in battle. You defeated the philosophy that created the purifiers in the first place. Above Mars, the Guardian fleet patrolled, ships crewed by humans and aliens working side by side, protecting a galaxy that had once tried to kill them all. On 12 worlds, former tribunal species lived under human protection, slowly learning to handle their own affairs again under careful supervision. On Earth, Admiral Junho Kim, now ancient and gray, sat in his garden reading reports from across the galaxy. Peace wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems, still species that resented human authority. But there was also progress, communication, understanding, a galaxy slowly learning that different species could coexist without one dominating the others. Captain Taeyang Park, Galactic Arbiter, addressed the reformed Galactic Council on the anniversary of the war's end. Representatives from 50 species attended, including the 12 former tribunal members who now participated without special authority. 100 years ago, the galaxy sent executioners to kill humanity, Taeyang said. They failed. Not because we were stronger, though we fought bravely.